from Roe, UCB, Merck, and Root Research and Insights. Please help me welcome Max Kerwick, Michelle Schell, Isaac Sapule, and Brooke Bauer.
Welcome to our panel on market research in the healthcare space. My name is Brooke Bauer, and I will be the moderator today. I have 17 years of experience in healthcare marketing research, mostly on the supplier side, some client side exposure. Most recently, I have co-founded a supplier company called Root Research and Insights. And for our panel today, we have three amazing professionals in the healthcare research space. All of them bring unique experiences and insights to our discussion. We have Isaac Sepul, Michelle Schell from UCB, Isaac's from Merck, and we have Max Kerwick from Roe. I'll give each of you a few minutes to introduce yourselves.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Isaac. So Merck's an old company, but I'm actually quite junior. I've had 8 years in big pharma and 2 at Merck. So here to give you my perspective. Ultimately, my experience has been that many of the companies we work with work really hard to try to better understand us as customers and the other internal customers that metabolize that research and put it to work. So hoping to pull the veil back on some of what's evolving in my company and in big pharma in general. And thanks.
Fantastic, thank you. My name is Michelle Schell, and I am the Global Business Insights Lead for Neurology with a focus on epilepsy. Prior to that, I was the Global Head of Competitive Intelligence at Baxter Healthcare for almost a decade. And previous to that, I was on the consulting side for several years.
And I'm Max Kerwick. I run insights and customer strategy for a company called Roe, which is a direct-to-patient telehealth platform. You might know our men's health brand, Roman, which started out in erectile dysfunction and men's hair loss, MLB ads, things like that. I've been at Roe for about 3.5 years, founding member of the Insights team, and have been building that function up. Obviously playing a very different slice of healthcare from these guys, but I think we'll have an interesting interplay here to share.
Yeah. Great, thank you guys. So for our first topic, let's talk about methodologies, innovative methodologies that you've used, and how they've impacted your work to bring about richer insights. And when we're thinking about methodologies, let's think about all of the different stakeholders that we interview in healthcare market research, including patients, sometimes caregivers, the healthcare providers, which could include a range of different individuals, the doctors, the nurses, and then also any market access or payer experience you might have. And I'll throw this out to the group. Isaac, if you'd like to start, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I didn't say this before, but my sweet spot this last 2 years has been the 2 years leading up to launch of the product I've been supporting. So we're pretty used to combining qual and quant depending on what the needs are that we're really trying to address. But I'm going to actually answer this slightly differently because, innovation comes in all shapes and forms. I'm actually kind of pushing to get more innovative deliverables. The traditional report has a pretty big payoff the day of the readout, but I kind of consider, I'm kind of romantic about my job, the opportunity of a market researcher within a big pharma company being able to drive even more impact. And so, for example, we're constantly staffing the marketing teams, but we'll have done research way before some of these members join the team. And so, how can I get a deliverable out of a research study that we do that I can then use to onboard my marketers? If it's a video deliverable, it's even snazzier because they're onboarding and they're probably dying in PowerPoint decks at the time. So it's kind of a personal touch to be able to offer them a firsthand experience of what the voice of the patient offered us months before they arrived.
Interesting, thank you. Michelle?
So I've got several examples, but I thought I would focus more on the payer, the market access side, because we actually did something recently that really, I think, made a huge difference in the outcomes of the work. So anytime you're working in market access, of course, the whole thing is about restrictions. And so what we wanted to do was set up something different that actually mimicked the real world. And what we did is we had basically a KOL that led basically an advisory board that included where we recruited from different size agencies. So we actually had that KOL expert, and this went over like a 3-hour period. It was meant to really mimic what we see in the real world. And the respondents just really got all into it. So we didn't have all these questions about, we have to restrict it for this and restrict it for that. They were much more focused on asking questions about the asset that we were looking at and that we were testing. they actually had to come back and start talking to themselves finally about step edits because they were so excited about the product, which is what we wanted to see.
Of course.
So that would be one of my favorite examples.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think this is an interesting question because, like, obviously, as researchers, insights professionals, we're working with, like, more or less the same basic toolkit, right? Like, we have the same basic methodologies that we're pulling from. But I think, like, similar to what these guys just said, I think the thing that I have found, we're essentially a tech company that operates in, consumer healthcare spaces. And so we get, I don't know, maybe 8 to 12 weeks of a running head start before the teams actually start building in a new category. And what I have found, hugely, hugely helpful is to invest that time in an advisory board, in building out a community of patients, of providers who operate in that space, and really like investing my team's time and running hard at that, week by week, over an 8-week period, 12-week period. We have some communities that we've ended up running for about 3 years, but that allows us to very quickly build a foundation of work that would just be kind of impossible if we were trying to run it like a normal project. Like, okay, cool, we're going to kick this off, and then we're going to run this study that takes 8 weeks, and then we'll have a report that takes 4 weeks or whatever, and I've got one deliverable at the end of 12 weeks, and then I got to hand it off, and they go, right? If I can build that community up, then we can run stuff on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's quant, sometimes it's basically like qual at a little bit of scale, right? But enough to give us some conviction that we understand that patient. And obviously on the provider side, it's way too expensive. You can't have hundreds of providers, but just getting 10 or 20 providers that will commit to engaging on a weekly basis, even for a month, right? Allows us to, kind of better understand how they think about the condition area, how they think, the patients that they see, use them as a proxy for that audience and really get like a richer understanding there. And so it's very labor intensive for that period, but I think that's been like a huge, huge, huge value add for us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's think about when you receive a research deliverable, how it is used within your company. As suppliers, if there's any suppliers out there, at least early in my career, I would think of that research deliverable as kind of like a silo. I now know that's not the case, but I'm interested in how you integrate different research studies that you've done together to lead to richer insights. And you don't just look at each research study as this study provides this study provides this, but how can we use these together to get richer insights? And that could be, a couple healthcare provider studies, or it could be a patient study and a healthcare study, so you could integrate audiences as well. Do you have any experiences with that where you could share how it has impacted the value of research insights across your organization?
One comes to mind, and it's an HCP study and a patient study. We talk to doctors in part, I think, because they're data-driven and evidence-based decision makers based on how they're educated. They'll respond, and maybe 75% of what they say will, absolutely lean or lead you to believe it's numbers driving a big decision. And you talk to patients, and honestly, patients might tell you the exact same thing because that's what the doctor responds with. But when you merge the perspectives, you really evaluate even like the nature of how the patient conversation happens. They talk symptoms up front, and doctors are human beings. Sometimes it can be more driven by the symptoms reported than you realize, and it certainly depends on the therapeutic class. But when you actually try to come at the same topic or business problem from both angles, sometimes you'll get something that you didn't originally expect.
Thank you. Michelle?
Wonderful. So we actually did a study a couple years ago about women of childbearing age for patients with epilepsy. And so the whole purpose of the study was to really understand what that experience was like. What we then did at the back end of it was, so that was kind of the qual piece, so to speak. And then we actually went out and did quantitative work as well as a little bit of qual with HCPs, and then merged all of that together to understand what are the gaps, what's missing, and actually we're getting ready to actually look at a publication of the results. So,
very cool.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm actually a second generation market researcher. My dad had a research company, worked with pharma a lot. I grew up back room of focus group facilities, all that kind of stuff. And I started working for him in high school. And you have this kind of classic, you do the project and you have this deliverable, and then what happens to it, right? On the supplier side, right? You ship it off and who knows what happens with it. And I think now being in this role for a while, it's you can see if the only thing that happens is you take that deliverable and use it one time, like you're really under leveraging that investment that you've made with that partner. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm always looking for opportunities to like pull that stuff back into the work that we're doing and link the projects that we're doing and link the efforts that we're doing so that we can show, hey, this is actually part of a trend that we've seen over time, right? These things build and reinforce in each other. And so I think honestly, it's less of like a thing that I have a specific example on, but like really just kind of like an underlying part of the philosophy. Like if I'm going to invest, particularly with a partner, like I want to make sure that we can take that work and leverage it in a lot of different places. And I think one of the things that we try to make a practice of doing, and this totally depends on bandwidth and interest and all that kind of stuff, but trying to take whoever we did that project for, whatever function across the business, and then figure out, okay, who else could use this, right? We did this for our corporate strategy team, but there are applications that are there for growth, that are for our digital product teams, all that kind of stuff. How can we take this and kind of like reformat it and do some sort of war room or brainstorm or something like that, where we try to activate that work on something that they are very intent on working on. So I think just trying to like really increase the leverage of those investments.
Great, thank you.
I might add one more thing, Brooke.
Yes, go ahead.
Related to how large the analytics and primary research organization is, it's a marriage. I mean, I think to the point about not being siloed, we've got data scientists and an increasing number of really talented individuals in that part of the company, but healthcare data is healthcare data. If specialty pharmacies involved, you might be missing a lot. And so, the primary research lends an incredible amount of insight into what they're actually looking at when the numbers don't come back when they expect them to. So,
right. So triangulating the data across multiple departments.
Yeah, and really building relationships with your colleagues that are more analytics focused, secondary data, buying it back from IQVIA or other sources to partner on work that they might be largely driving.
Okay, great example.
Yeah. So just building upon what he said is, right now at UCB we're really focused around advanced analytics, how we can combine that all together. But the asset I work on, there's no ICD-9 code, or sorry, ICD-10 code for it, I should say. So we're having to do a lot of primary market research. So I've been able to get really integrated with our patient engagement team, with our HUR team, real world evidence. And then the back half of this year, our plan is to really look at how can we mine all these huge data sets that we now have available to us. And the other thing is that I just found out this morning that we actually are the pilot to look at basically letting AI go through all these different transcripts that we have from all these different work streams and seeing what we can find from it using natural language processing, machine learning. And so we'll see what we see, but I'm excited about that.
That is a perfect transition into my next question, which is going to be about the use of technology in healthcare market research. Can't avoid that topic in a panel like this. It was going to be about any new technologies across, the years. The technology has been evolving. We're at an all-time high right now. We have technology that helps us with our platforms, with our data analytics on the back end. What have you all experienced recently with new technologies that have either changed the way that you do research or opened up opportunities, to your points? If you have anything else to comment on that, Michelle.
So I would say that it's still very much in the early stages, but a lot of it is about also then what can we do with things like AI to really help us mine even the insights from all of our various work streams that we've got, because one always builds upon top of the other. And I think it's understanding how we can leverage that. I mean, we've seen a lot of great things today, but how well do things actually work in the real world versus not, to be seen from my perspective, because I just started working with this. But so I think that to me is key. And it's also what they did last year is they actually integrated as part of our reorganization the research team and competitive intelligence along with the advanced analytics. So now we're talking directly to each other all the time versus having separate silos that people are with.
Interesting.
I mean, I think this is like, the topic of the day, right? And I think, I work very, very closely with my counterpart who leads up data. And I think the great part about being a direct-to-consumer business with a tech platform is we generate a phenomenal amount of data that flows directly through our platform, right? Downside is it's a phenomenal amount of data that you have to sort through. And I think, there has been, just an incredible amount of free text, whether that's coming in through customer service tickets, or it's coming in through patient provider messaging, or it's coming in through responses to, the automated CX touch points that we have for NPS or CSAT or things like that. That we really just have not had like the manpower to muscle over the past couple of years. And what we're doing now is we're taking that stuff and we're able to look at it in aggregate. And I think the things that we're doing are still fairly primitive, I think, but it's gone from 0 to 1, which already is a huge, huge, huge value add. And I think what really excites me is the path from 1 to 10, I think looks much quicker than that 0 to 1, right? Like just getting the systems in there, frankly, even getting an LLM provider under a BAA so that we can even do it, was probably the hardest part. But once you get that stuff in there, and once you kind of figure out hey, what are the themes that we need to pull out and how do we need to monitor this stuff, it becomes very powerful very quickly. So we're kind of, I would say, an inch deep in that right now, but I think, we have pretty good line of sight on 12, 18 months from now from being at in a pretty rich state in that data.
Think about how I want to answer this question. We talked about CX, we talked about, a number of other groups, and, we support the business. And I think it's important that the business maintain a clear understanding of who's delivering what, who's collaborating on what. So, I guess I'm answering this question about, there's technology, and then there's the expectations of what technology can deliver and what AI can deliver. And I think, in just about every organization, there's a lot of teams trying to figure out how best to use that. Yeah. And so the story we tell needs to be consistent. I actually have these friends in data science and other parts of the organization, and I don't actually want to blur the lines between what they do and I do, because in a sense, if I confuse my commercial leaders, I don't think that I don't think that's in anyone's best interest. So, technology and the expectations are maybe as relevant as just technology that's changed how we work.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Great examples. Well, I see that we're running close on time. So to wrap up, if there are people just starting out in their journey of their career in healthcare market research, what advice would you give them specifically as it relates to market research within the healthcare space? Max, would you like to take
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yes. If you have anyone out in the audience that is starting out on their journey in their career in the healthcare market research space, what advice would you give them specifically as it relates to market research in healthcare?
In healthcare? Yeah, I think that the challenging part about doing research in healthcare is also the very fun part, which is it in many ways looks more like B2B research, where it's there are many stakeholders involved. The person who needs the product is not always the person who is in control of the decision and things like that. And I think that type of work where you get to understand the different parties involved and their points of view and what drives that decision and everything, really, if this is what you want to do, I almost think there's not a better area to start out, because you could very easily go from this into other consumer work. You could go into other B2B work, and I think there's a lot of applicability there. But I think, I was at lunch earlier talking with somebody about this, the human side of this is so powerful. And I think a lot of people like to, kind of poo-poo the pharmaceutical industry for, various ways that it's set up. But it is the most scalable form of healthcare that we've developed, right? It scales way better than doctors. It scales way better than hospital systems. It scales way better than medical devices, anything else. And I think that is just such a powerful thing, and getting to see the impact of that from patients and things like that is just incredibly rewarding. And so I think it's just a great place to do it. And I encourage anybody that's out there doing that kind of stuff to dig into it.
I think the only thing I would add on to that is, and I mentioned the patients, but to me it really is all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the patients. Yep. I've done research where we've actually impacted them and they ended up going through brain surgery for Parkinson's disease, for DBT, because of the work that we did. In this case, it was a 4-month in-home use test, but I really see them as my patients. And if I'm out sick for work, one point in time I had to go on medical leave for a few weeks for surgery, but I miss my patients. And because to me, it's what we're doing is really, really important. A lot of times, especially with epilepsy, it's a silent disease, and you'll see that the qualitative research is actually a therapy session for the patients and caregivers.
100%.
Thank you.
Relationships are really important to what I do, because problem definition is absolutely essential. And there's a presentation 2 or 3 before on this blue stage where they were just talking about, who's the right audience to answer this question for us? How will we make a decision based on this information? What does success look like? And the better your relationship, I think the more time you get with that customer to make sure you design the research in a way that, informs directly on the decision they want. So yeah, we really like to hit the mark.
Great. Well, thank you, all of you. It's been a great discussion, and thank you, everyone who joined. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you. Where's my water?
Oh,
We're
question?
out of time, so I don't know if we can take any questions, but
Other questions?
I think these folks might be able to hang out for maybe a minute or two. If you have any questions, just come onto the stage and